In this episode, we explore the case of a newlywed husband who disappeared on his honeymoon. The shocking truth behind his disappearance revealed a web of deception, secret affairs, and ultimately murder. Victor Ruiz was a 45-year-old renowned surgeon living in Santa Cruz, California, known for his dedication to his career and sharp mind. He had built a prestigious reputation in the medical field. Despite his accomplishments, Victor had spent most of his life under the firm control of his mother, Isabella Ruiz. After years of bachelorhood, Victor's life took an unexpected turn when he met Lena Castillo, a 32-year-old fitness trainer from Aspen, Colorado. Victor and Lena met at a high-end gym in Los Angeles, where she worked as a personal trainer and he was a client. Lena's warm smile and energetic personality drew him in, and they quickly struck up a conversation that extended far beyond a typical workout session. Her positive attitude and passion for fitness intrigued him, and soon they were exchanging stories over coffee. What began as casual conversations turned into a deep connection. Over the next few months, their relationship flourished. Victor was charmed by Lena's lively spirit, while Lena admired Victor's calmness and stability. They spent their weekends hiking along the scenic coast of Santa Cruz and exploring local art galleries. Lena even managed to win over Victor's strong-willed mother, Isabella, who surprisingly approved of their relationship despite her usual controlling nature. However, their relationship was far from simple. Lena's need for attention from Victor was obvious, but so was her unusual closeness to Isabella. Friends often remarked on how much time Lena spent with Victor's mother, sometimes giving her more attention than Victor himself. This raised eyebrows, with people wondering if Lena was trying to win over Isabella or if there was something more beneath the surface. Lena often invited Isabella to join them on outings, and the two shared private jokes that occasionally left Victor feeling uneasy. Despite these odd dynamics, Victor believed he had finally found happiness. He proposed to Lena in the spring of 2013, and they swiftly planned a wedding, eager to start their lives together. The couple married just weeks before their honeymoon on Catalina Island, California, where they hoped to unwind and celebrate their new life. But just days into the honeymoon, tragedy struck. Victor's vision of a perfect marriage and a peaceful escape by the ocean came crashing down. He mysteriously vanished from the resort one night, and it wouldn't be long before his body was discovered. For a man who had spent his life in control of his destiny, the final moments of Victor Ruiz's life would be anything but. On June 9, 2013, the sun rose over Catalina Island, a favorite honeymoon destination known for its quiet beaches and tranquil atmosphere. As the day began, Lena Castillo awoke in their hotel suite at the seaside resort, eager to start another day of relaxation with her new husband, Victor. But when she turned to the other side of the bed, she realized he was gone. At first, Lena thought nothing of it. She assumed Victor had gone for an early morning walk or headed to the resort cafe for breakfast. However, as the hours passed with no sign of him, her concerns started to grow. After searching the resort and asking staff if anyone had seen him, Lena finally approached the front desk to report Victor missing. The staff immediately contacted the local authorities, and officers from the Catalina Island police arrived at the resort around 10:30 a.m. Lena described Victor as a responsible man who had no history of wandering off or making sudden changes to plans. She was certain something had gone wrong. The police began their search by combing through the resort and nearby beaches, trails, and other surrounding areas. As the hours turned into days, their efforts continued, but there was no trace of Victor. By June 12, the island's mood had shifted from one of relaxation to tension. The search intensified as both the police and local community grew increasingly worried, and Lena's worry turned into despair. Then, on the morning of June 14, a disturbing discovery was made. A local photographer named Frank Baxter came across the grisly scene while walking along a secluded beach around 6:30 a.m., hoping to capture the early light. The area was far from the bustling parts of the island frequented by tourists. As Frank neared the shoreline, something in the water caught his eye. At first he thought it was debris or a large object tangled in the seaweed, but as he got closer, the truth became clear. It was a body. Horrified, Frank quickly dialed 911, his hands shaking as he described what he had found to the operator. Within minutes, the police were on the scene, sealing off the area from onlookers and tourists. Victor Ruiz's body was found face down in the shallow water, his clothes soaked through, with no immediate signs of struggle. At first glance, it seemed like a tragic accident, possibly a drowning. However, as the investigators examined the scene, they noticed something was off. Faint bruises marked Victor's neck, barely visible but suspicious. His body was bloated, indicating that he had been in the water for several hours, but his shoes remained on, which struck investigators as odd. People don't typically go swimming fully dressed. Victor's body was sent to the county morgue for a detailed examination, but by that time, it was clear this was no ordinary drowning. Something far more sinister had taken place on this quiet island retreat. When the Catalina Island Police Department arrived at the scene of Victor Ruiz's body on June 14, 2013, it was evident to Detective Angela Martinez, a seasoned investigator known for her sharp instincts, that this wouldn't be an easy case. While the initial call hinted at a possible accidental drowning, the scene told a much different story. The area where Victor was found was remote, far from the main tourist spots like Avalon Beach, where honeymooners and families usually gathered. The sand around his body was undisturbed, and there were no signs of a struggle or footprints leading to or from the water. Yet, Victor's body was fully dressed, including his shoes, which struck the investigators as strange. People don't typically go swimming with their shoes on. Detective Martinez crouched next to the body, noticing faint bruises around Victor's neck. They were subtle, almost concealed by the salt water that had soaked his skin, but enough to raise suspicion. Something about the scene seemed staged. Nearby, Officer Jake Reynolds, a young officer new to the department, worked alongside Martinez, carefully documenting the area with photographs and notes. An autopsy was quickly arranged, but the early signs all pointed to foul play. The body's condition, bloated from hours in the water, made it difficult to identify any obvious trauma. However, the bruising, along with Victor's fully dressed state, left little doubt in Detective Martinez's mind that this was no accident. The beach remained eerily silent that morning as the investigation team worked methodically. They set up perimeter tape and combed the shoreline for clues, searching for anything out of place, whether it was clothing, footprints, or personal belongings that could offer clues. Their tools included metal detectors, forensic kits, and even drones to scan the surrounding area from above. Detective Martinez took charge, directing her team to treat the case as a potential homicide. Meanwhile, officers back at the resort questioned staff and guests, asking if anyone had seen or heard anything strange the night before. Hotel security footage was also reviewed to piece together Victor's final movements. As the investigation progressed, it became more and more clear that Victor hadn't simply wandered off for a midnight swim. He had been drugged, dragged to the water, and left to drown, the ocean used as a cover-up for a much darker crime. The first person the police turned to was Lena Castillo, Victor's wife of just a few weeks. Lena, 32, was from Aspen, Colorado, and had met Victor less than a year before their whirlwind wedding. Before marrying Victor, Lena had worked as a fitness trainer at a luxury gym in Los Angeles. On the surface, she seemed like a cheerful, outgoing woman with a passion for health and wellness, but those who knew her well hinted at a more complex side: manipulative, secretive, and always calculating. On the morning of June 14, 2013, just hours after Victor's body was found, Lena was brought in for questioning. Detectives described her demeanor as calm but distant. She wore a large sun hat and sunglasses, refusing to remove them even during the interview. Lena explained that she had woken up that morning to find her husband missing. Initially, she assumed he had gone for an early morning swim, as he had done a few times since they arrived at the Catalina Island resort. But when the hours went by and Victor didn't return, she became worried and called the police. During the interrogation, Lena's story was straightforward, but her behavior raised eyebrows. She spoke calmly, almost too calmly, about her missing husband as if talking about a stranger. When detectives asked her about their relationship, she described Victor as a good man but was vague when questioned about their intimacy during the honeymoon. Detective Angela Martinez, who led the questioning, noticed Lena's lack of emotion. She wasn't behaving like someone who had just lost her husband, Martinez later noted. There was no real sadness, no tears, just a cold detachment that didn't sit right. As the police dug deeper into Lena's background, more troubling details came to light. She had a history of financial issues, with several maxed-out credit cards and unpaid debts. Investigators also discovered that Lena had formed an unusually close bond with Victor's mother, Isabella Ruiz, who had surprisingly joined them on their honeymoon, a detail that struck many as odd. The police began to suspect that Lena might have had a motive for murder. Victor, a wealthy surgeon, had recently amended his will to make Lena the primary beneficiary. If Victor were out of the picture, Lena stood to inherit a substantial fortune. Despite her calm appearance, the police knew they had to dig deeper to understand Lena's true intentions. The second person of interest in Victor Ruiz's death was Amy Liu, a 21-year-old yoga instructor who worked at the beachfront resort where Victor and Lena were staying. Amy was originally from Los Angeles but had moved to Catalina Island to save money for college, where she planned to study kinesiology. Young and carefree, Amy seemed to have a bright future. At least that's what everyone thought. The police soon uncovered that Amy had been involved in a passionate affair with Lena during the Ruiz honeymoon. Several resort employees reported seeing the two women sneaking away together, often while Victor was either asleep or out for a walk. This wasn't just a casual fling. Investigators described Amy as completely under Lena's spell, admitting to having sex with her numerous times after Victor's disappearance, and even after his body was found. Lena, known for her charming but manipulative nature, had easily pulled Amy into her web of deception. On June 22, 2013, Amy was brought in for questioning. Unlike Lena, Amy was visibly shaken and anxious during the interrogation. She confessed to the affair almost immediately but maintained that she had nothing to do with Victor's death. Amy told police that she and Lena had been seeing each other since the couple's arrival on the island, but she insisted she was unaware of any plan to harm Victor. Detective Angela Martinez noted Amy's emotional state, believing that Amy was scared and confused, but not trying to conceal anything about the affair. To the police, Amy seemed more like a pawn in Lena's game than anything else. Amy recounted how Lena had told her that her marriage to Victor was purely a business arrangement and that while she didn't love Victor, she did love his mother, Isabella Ruiz. Lena had even hinted at running away together to the California coast for endless freedom, but Amy never imagined things would go this far. Naive and caught up in the whirlwind of her first romantic relationship with another woman, Amy struggled to comprehend the reality of the situation. Despite her claims of innocence, the police viewed Amy as a person of interest. They were suspicious of her involvement with Lena and wondered whether she had played a role in a larger plan to get rid of Victor. Amy's alibi was shaky. She claimed she had been working at the yoga studio the night Victor disappeared, but her shifts were irregular, and there were no clear records to confirm her whereabouts during the crucial hour. While Amy insisted she had nothing to do with the murder, her involvement with Lena couldn't be ignored. Investigators dug deeper into the young yoga instructor's life, trying to determine just how deeply she had been pulled into Lena's deadly scheme. The investigation took a shocking turn on June 24, 2013, when new evidence came to light. The day started off sunny and warm, typical for Catalina Island in late June. The investigation had stalled until a hotel receptionist, Natalie Brown, came forward with a startling story. Natalie, who had worked at the resort for years, told police she had overheard something disturbing just days before Victor Ruiz's body was found. On the night of June 10, Natalie was working the night shift when she heard strange noises coming from the Ruiz suite. At first, she assumed it was just the couple, but what she heard next made her stop. She distinctly heard two women's voices, one of them being Lena's, clearly engaged in what sounded like rough sex. But what was more alarming, Victor was still in the room, asleep. Natalie explained that she had hesitated to speak up earlier due to her desire to avoid any complications, especially given her personal situation. However, after learning about Victor's death, she felt she had to come forward. When pressed for more details, Natalie confirmed that the other woman she heard was none other than Victor's elderly mother, Isabella Ruiz. This revelation stunned the investigators. They had already confirmed Lena's infidelity, but the fact that she was involved in a sexual relationship with her own mother-in-law was a twist they hadn't anticipated. It completely changed their understanding of the events leading up to Victor's death. Detective Angela Martinez was the first to piece together the implications of Natalie's account. Suddenly, everything clicked into place, and Martinez considered the possibility that Lena and Isabella were using Victor as a cover for their affair. And when that wasn't enough, they plotted to eliminate him. With this new information, the police revisited the crime scene and started digging deeper into the relationship between Lena and Isabella. It wasn't long before more evidence surfaced. Hotel staff recalled frequently seeing the two women together, often leaving Victor behind to have secret encounters in secluded areas of the resort. Other witnesses came forward, describing the strange dynamic between the newlyweds and Isabella. Investigators now believed that Lena and Isabella had been planning Victor's murder for some time. The discovery of their affair added a new layer to their motive. It became clear that Victor had become a barrier to their twisted relationship, an obstacle that needed to be removed. Armed with this new evidence, the police were one step closer to solving the mystery of Victor Ruiz's death. With the new information provided by the hotel receptionist, detectives shifted their attention to Isabella Ruiz, Victor's 78-year-old mother. Up until this point, Isabella had been viewed as a grieving, long-widowed mother, but her secret relationship with Lena raised serious doubts about her involvement in her son's murder. Isabella was known in Santa Cruz as a strong-willed, wealthy widow with a commanding personality. Even at her advanced age, she kept a tight grip on her son's life and finances, dictating everything from his social engagements to his diet. She was the type of woman who dressed impeccably in brands like Chanel and Hermes and insisted on driving her black Cadillac. Despite suffering from macular degeneration, she had always expected unwavering loyalty from Victor but had been unusually approving of his marriage to Lena. Detectives invited Isabella Ruiz to the station for a formal interview on June 25, 2013. At first, Isabella appeared calm and composed, playing the role of a heartbroken mother. She expressed disbelief that anyone would suspect her or Lena of wrongdoing. "My son was my precious boy," she said, her voice trembling as she dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief. "I would never harm my darling Victor." But when detectives confronted her with the receptionist's testimony and the growing evidence of her secret affair with Lena, Isabella's demeanor shifted. The frail, grieving mother was gone. In her place stood a defensive and angry woman, accusing the police of trying to destroy her family. "This is absurd. You're dragging my name through the mud based on gossip from a hotel worker," she snapped. Despite her protests, detectives noticed cracks in Isabella's story. She couldn't explain why she and Lena had been spending so much time alone together during the honeymoon, or why they had been overheard in intimate situations that sounded unmistakably sexual. The carefully constructed image of the innocent mother-in-law began to crumble under the pressure of the investigation. By this point, detectives had a strong theory. Isabella and Lena had conspired to murder Victor so they could continue their illicit relationship without him in the way. Isabella's possessiveness over both her son and her lover was a driving force. She couldn't stand the idea of losing Lena, especially to someone as important as her own son. Though Isabella denied any involvement, the police were becoming more certain they were closing in on the truth. Her evasive responses and the mounting evidence only deepened their suspicions. The once powerful matriarch now found herself at the center of a scandal she had worked hard to keep hidden. By June 28, 2013, the investigation reached a tipping point. Detectives had uncovered enough evidence to directly connect Isabella Ruiz to her son's murder. The shocking revelation of her affair with Lena, combined with the testimony of the receptionist, who overheard the two women having sex in the same room as Victor while he slept, painted a disturbing picture. The grieving mother had now become the prime suspect, and investigators believed she played an active role in Victor's death. Isabella Ruiz, 78, was known for her manipulative nature. She orchestrated every aspect of his existence, from his finances to his relationships. However, her relationship with Lena Castillo, her daughter-in-law, was even more troubling. It extended beyond familial bounds into a secret, sordid affair that ultimately led the two women to plot Victor's demise. On the night of the murder, Isabella, who possessed the villainous mind of a cartoon supervillain, slipped sleeping pills into Victor's drink. Meanwhile, Lena distracted him with sex. Once Victor was unconscious, Isabella and Lena dragged his body to the beach, staging his death to look like a tragic drowning accident. They hoped the ocean currents would erase any trace of their involvement, but forensic experts soon uncovered bruises on Victor's neck and traces of sedatives in his system. The police arrested Isabella Ruiz at her Santa Cruz estate. It was a quiet afternoon, and she was enjoying her daily cup of tea on her front porch when officers arrived. She was taken into custody without a fight and maintained her innocence, showing little emotion as the handcuffs clicked into place, seemingly expecting the arrest all along. Lena Castillo was also arrested, but further investigation revealed that Isabella had masterminded the entire plan, with Lena deeply under her influence. The news of Isabella's arrest shocked Victor's family and friends. Those who once admired her for her strength and sharp wit were now horrified by the truth. The trial of Isabella Ruiz began in November 2014 and quickly became one of the most talked about cases among true crime enthusiasts in California. The prosecution, led by Assistant State Attorney James O'Connor, argued that Isabella had killed her own son to preserve her secret affair with Lena. O'Connor used the shocking details of the mother-daughter-in-law relationship to paint Isabella as a manipulative and cold-hearted killer. The defense, led by high-profile attorney Mark Randall, tried to portray Isabella Ruiz as a frail old woman who could not possibly have orchestrated such a crime. Randall painted Lena Castillo as the true mastermind, claiming that Isabella had been manipulated into covering up for her daughter-in-law. However, Isabella's stern demeanor on the stand did little to win the jury's sympathy, and they were clearly disturbed by the sordid details of the case. After 3 weeks of testimony, the jury took just 2 hours to reach a verdict. Isabella Ruiz was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Lena Castillo, though charged as an accessory to murder, received a lighter sentence of 25 years after cooperating with investigators. The verdict brought some relief to Victor's family, but the damage left behind by the shocking betrayal would never fully heal. Many felt that justice had been served, but Victor's tragic death and the circumstances surrounding it left a dark cloud over the Ruiz family for years to come. After the trial, life changed drastically for everyone involved. Isabella Ruiz, the mother convicted of murdering her son, was sent to a state prison in California. Despite her sharp wit and strong personality, life behind bars proved challenging. Isabella tried to maintain her dignity, but the isolation and stigma of her crime weighed heavily on her. In prison, she was often the target of gossip and disdain from other inmates. Over the years, Isabella's health began to decline, and in 2021 she contracted COVID-19 during a surge in cases. Despite efforts to treat her, she passed away alone in a prison hospital. News of her death made headlines, with some former friends and family expressing mixed feelings about her fate. Lena Castillo, Victor's widow, faced a different kind of consequence after her reduced sentence of 25 years. She served her time in a women's correctional facility, often reminiscing about her life before the murder. During her incarceration, she sought therapy to deal with her feelings of guilt and confusion about her relationships. Lena maintained her innocence regarding the actual murder but acknowledged her role in the events that unfolded. Amy Liu, the young yoga instructor who had become entangled in the scandal, also faced her own struggles. Though Amy was never charged with any crime, the fallout from the trial affected her reputation. She continued to work at the resort for a few years after the events, but the whispers of the affair haunted her. In search of a fresh start, Amy eventually moved to Los Angeles, California, where she enrolled in college.